Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever ended a long, exhausting day and thought to yourself, I worked all day, but I have no idea what I actually accomplished? You were busy, no doubt about it. Emails, calls, errands, decisions, meetings, but at the end of it all, you don't feel wealthier, freer, or more fulfilled, just tired. That right there is the hidden cost of complexity. It steals your time, your focus, and your income quietly. You don't notice it at first because being busy feels productive. But over time, you start to feel the weight. Your days blur, your goals stall, and worst of all, your earning potential flatlines. Not because you're not capable, but because you're drowning in decisions that don't matter. In this video, I'm going to show you something that changed my life and the lives of thousands of my clients. It's not a hack or a motivational quote, it's a strategy, a mental framework, a way of thinking that will free you from the noise and let you focus only on what matters. You're going to learn how to simplify your life strategically so that you can earn twice as much with half the stress. It may sound bold, but it's real. And by the end of this, you'll see why. Now let me be clear. This isn't about doing less for the sake of laziness. This is about doing less of the wrong things so you can do more of the right ones. It's about reclaiming your clarity. Simplification is not subtraction. It's multiplication by elimination. When you remove what doesn't matter, what does matter becomes obvious and powerful. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I was constantly chasing more opportunities, more calls, more complexity. I thought the harder I worked, the more I'd earn. But instead, I hit a plateau. My days were full, but my progress was slow. My mind was scattered. I felt productive, but I wasn't effective. Until one day, I asked myself, what if the key to earning more isn't adding more, but removing the unnecessary? That question changed everything. I began ruthlessly auditing every part of my business and life, every task, every habit, every responsibility. I asked, is this moving me forward or just keeping me busy? I realized most of what filled my days was noise disguised as importance. Meetings that went nowhere, projects that didn't connect to my core goals, tasks I should have delegated months ago. And when I started simplifying, something unexpected happened. My income doubled. Not because I found a secret shortcut, but because I finally created space to do deep, focused, profitable work. I stopped leaking time on things that didn't matter. And I became, for the first time in a long time, fully in control of my attention. That's what I want to give you today. Not just productivity, not just income, but command over your day. Because when you simplify, you create leverage, you build clarity. You stop reacting and start leading. And make no mistake, this is not a one-time event. Simplification is a discipline, a daily choice, a standard you set for your time, your energy, and your life. And once you commit to it, the rewards are exponential. You want to know what the most underrated high-income skill is? It's not sales, it's not marketing, it's clarity. Because clarity is what makes every other skill work faster. Without it, you waste time building things no one needs, chasing goals that don't matter, saying yes to opportunities that dilute your energy. And diluted energy means diluted results. It's that simple. People often ask me, Brian, how do I know what to simplify? My answer is always the same. First, get painfully honest about what actually moves the needle. Most people can't answer that question. Not because they're lazy, but because they've never been taught to ask it. We live in a world that rewards movement over meaning. You scroll all day, answer messages, say yes to meetings, react. But when was the last time you stopped and asked, is this essential? Is this profitable? Is this mine to do? Let me give you a tool I've used for decades. I call it the elimination filter. It's simple. You take everything on your plate projects, obligations, habits, and ask 3 questions. 1, what can I eliminate? 2, what can I automate? 3, what can I delegate? And if it doesn't pass one of those 3 filters, you better have a very good reason to keep doing it. Otherwise, it's a thief stealing your time, your money, your focus. The truth is, we've been conditioned to associate success with complexity. We think the more sophisticated something is, the more valuable it must be. But the most successful people I've ever met have one thing in common. Their lives are boring on purpose. Predictable routines, clear priorities, no fluff. And because of that, they make space for deep thinking, creative breakthroughs, and profitable execution. It's not a coincidence. When you simplify, you eliminate drag, you reduce decision fatigue, you create mental bandwidth, and that bandwidth gets redirected to the work that truly matters. Strategy, leadership, vision. That's where the money is. That's where the impact is. But most people never reach that level because their minds are buried under 93 open tabs, both literally and metaphorically. And here's the kicker. Every time you touch something unimportant, you delay the important. Every yes to a low-impact task is a no to your income. That's why simplification isn't just helpful, it's profitable. It doesn't just make you feel better, it makes you earn better. I remember when I simplified my content creation process years ago. I used to write across multiple platforms, trying to speak to everyone on every topic. It was exhausting. But when I narrowed it down to one core idea, one message, one audience, I didn't lose engagement. I gained revenue. Because clarity sells, simplicity scales. You don't need 100 tasks a day to grow. You need 3 that matter and the discipline to ignore the rest. That's where most people fail. Not in effort, but in focus allocation. They distribute their attention like confetti and then wonder why they feel stuck. So here's the challenge. For the next 24 hours, track how many times you shift your focus. Every notification, every tab, every unnecessary yes, write them down. By the end of the day, you'll be shocked by how much energy is being stolen by low return activities. That's the first step to freedom. Seeing the cost of your distractions. One thing I've learned after decades trabalhando com pessoas ambiciosas é que a maioria delas não fala por falta de talento. Elas falam porque estão mentalmente sobrecarregadas. E não se trata apenas de ter uma agenda cheia. É a confusão interna, é lista de pendências inacabadas, os compromissos que elas assumiram por obrigação. As metas que não são mais delas, mas que continuam lá ocupando espaço emocional. Let me ask you something that might hit a little close. How much of your current stress comes from things you said yes to, but should have let go of a long time ago? Projects, responsibilities, habits, even relationships. You carry all of it because letting go feels like failure. But here's the truth. Simplifying isn't quitting, it's choosing. It's saying, I value my time and energy too much to keep scattering it. And here's what most people miss. Complexity is emotionally addictive. It makes you feel important, needed, busy. But deep down, it's killing your momentum. Because when everything matters, nothing gets finished. You touch 10 things, but complete none. And when your days end unfinished, your confidence erodes, slowly, silently, until one day you wake up and realize, I've been working for years, but I haven't moved forward. That's what complexity does. It creates movement without progress, activity without achievement. And eventually it trains your brain to normalize mediocrity. That's the most dangerous part. You begin to believe that spinning your wheels is just how life works. That stress is success. That exhaustion is noble. But it's not. Success, real success, is quiet, focused, clean. It's built by people who know what to ignore. People who value clarity over chaos. People who aren't afraid to look at their overloaded life and say, this isn't working. I need to simplify. So if you feel like you've been stuck, like your growth has stalled or your energy is scattered, it's not because you lack discipline. It's because you haven't decluttered your priorities. Your brain is trying to build a mansion on a plot of land covered in debris. Of course, you're overwhelmed. You don't need more effort, you need more space. Now let me give you a simple shift that changed everything for me. I stopped asking, what more can I do? And started asking, what can I remove that creates more results? One question. Total perspective change. Suddenly, I started noticing all the things I was doing out of habit, guilt, or fear, and I began letting them go. Do you know what happened next? I had more time to think, to strategize, to act with power instead of pressure. And just like that, without changing who I was, I began producing more, earning more, and stressing less. Because my calendar was no longer a battlefield. It was a runway. Every task had purpose. Every meeting had alignment. Every hour had intention. That's the power of simplification. So the question is, what are you willing to remove right now that's costing you clarity and cash? What would happen if you made a habit of deleting one low-value commitment every week for the next 90 days? Imagine what your life would look like if it was only filled with the essential. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't simplify by design, you will suffer by default. And in that suffering, you'll make emotional decisions. You'll chase urgency instead of importance. You'll confuse motion with meaning. And slowly, your potential will drown under obligations you never needed in the first place. You deserve better than that. You know what's funny? The more successful I became, the more boring my life looked from the outside. And that's not a coincidence, it's a choice. Because success doesn't live in chaos. It lives in rhythm, in intention, in routines that look simple, but quietly produce extraordinary results. Let me show you how that looks in practice. Every evening before I shut down, I do three things. First, I write down the top 3 outcomes I want to create tomorrow. Not 10, not a full to-do list, just 3 clear, high-leverage actions. Then, I scan my calendar for anything that doesn't align with those outcomes, and I remove or reschedule what I can. Finally, I visualize exactly how I'll start the next day, what I'll work on first, how I'll feel, and what winning will look like by noon. This takes me 10 minutes, but it gives me back hours. Why? Because when I wake up, I don't negotiate with my emotions. I don't scroll through options. I execute a plan I already decided in a better emotional state. That's what high performance is. Deciding in advance how you'll behave when you no longer feel like it. In the morning, I follow another simple protocol. No phone for the first hour, no inbox, no distractions. I guard that first 60 minutes like a CEO guards their biggest investment. Why? Because it is my biggest investment. It's when my mind is sharpest, my willpower is strongest, and my creative energy is fresh. That's when I tackle the work that actually moves the needle: strategy, content, decision-making, and reflection. Everything else waits. Everything. You might think, Brian, that sounds too rigid. But let me tell you something. Structure creates freedom. When your schedule is clear, your mind is calm. When your routines are simple, your energy compounds. When you remove the non-essential, you get to live fully present inside the essential. And here's what no one tells you. The more decisions you delegate to routine, the more power you have to face the decisions that actually matter. That's how you stay sharp. That's how you reduce anxiety. You're not overloaded with 1,000 micro choices by 10 a.m. You're locked in, prepared, focused. I call this decision conservation. It's the idea that your mental energy is finite and most people waste it by breakfast. They make random food choices, answer reactive messages, multitask, and get sucked into other people's priorities. And by the time they get to their own goals, they're already depleted. You don't need more hustle. You need less noise. And here's the beautiful part. As you simplify your routines, your identity starts to shift. You begin to see yourself as someone in control, someone who follows through, someone who doesn't need chaos to feel busy or important. And that shift deep in your self-perception is what unlocks consistency, not just for a week, but for life. So here's your next step. I want you to look at your day like a systems engineer. Ask, what do I do that feels important but produces little? What do I repeat daily that could be automated or removed? What one habit, if done with discipline, would eliminate 5 others? Answering those questions won't just make you more efficient, it will rewire the way you experience work, income, and time itself. Because when you simplify, you finally get to do what matters with energy, clarity, and full presence. And when you do that consistently, wealth becomes inevitable. Let me share something that surprised even me. When I simplified my habits and routines, my relationships improved too. Not because I became more available, but because I became more present. I wasn't distracted in conversations. I wasn't half listening, half texting. I was there, focused. And people feel that. They feel the difference between a scattered mind and a grounded one. Simplification isn't just a productivity tactic. It's a lifestyle upgrade. When your mental bandwidth is no longer hijacked by 50 low-value tasks, you can finally give your full attention to what and who matters. Your spouse, your children, your clients, your future. It's all connected. And that's the real secret. The quality of your output improves when the noise is removed. Most people think they need more information to grow. More books, more strategies, more opinions. But most of the time, you don't need more. You need less. Less contradiction. Less second guessing. Less input that distracts you from execution. In fact, I often tell my students, if you just follow through on 10% of what you already know, your life would transform. That's the cost of complexity. It paralyzes action. It gives you a false sense of progress through motion, but no progress in results. You research instead of doing. You debate instead of deciding. You prepare instead of performing. Why? Because your mind is too full to focus. Now let's talk about money. There's a direct connection between simplicity and income. Every time I helped a business owner simplify their offer, their marketing message, or their delivery process, their profit margins increased. Every time. Simplicity sells, clarity closes. And when your systems are clean, your client experience becomes smoother, faster, and more referable. You don't need 5 products. You need one offer that works. You don't need to be on every platform. You need to dominate one space with precision. You don't need 1,000 leads. You need 50 ideal clients who can pay you well and respect your time. That's the math of simplicity. Fewer inputs, better execution, higher output. But it's not just about money, it's about peace. And peace is a competitive advantage, because when everyone else is drowning in overwhelm, you move calm and clear. While others hesitate, you act. While others juggle 5 ideas, you finish 1. And in the marketplace, the finisher always wins. This isn't theory, it's not mindset fluff, it's reality. The most respected professionals I know live with intentional simplicity. They don't chase everything, they filter. They don't respond to every demand, they prioritize. They're not everywhere they're effective where they choose to be. That's power. So here's what I want you to remember. Every system you simplify, every task you remove, every distraction you eliminated, all stacks. It compounds. And one day, you'll wake up and realize, I'm doing less, but I'm making more, living better, and feeling stronger than I ever did when I was doing it all. That's the win. And it's available to you not someday, but starting tonight. All it takes is a decision to value clarity over clutter, effectiveness over motion, and peace over pressure. One of the most overlooked truths about building wealth is this. Money doesn't respond to how much you do it, responds to how clearly you do it. When your life is chaotic, your energy is fractured. Your execution is rushed. Your decision-making becomes reactive. And you can't scale chaos. You can only scale clarity. That's why simplifying your environment, your schedule, and your focus has a direct effect on your income. I've seen this pattern over and over again in entrepreneurs, executives, creators, and even in my own journey. The people who earn the most are the ones who remove the most. They remove distractions. They remove clutter. They remove anything that doesn't lead directly to value, results, or peace of mind. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was consulting with a business owner who was stuck. His revenue had flatlined, his team was overwhelmed. And he kept saying, "I feel like we're working harder than ever, but we're not getting anywhere." When I looked at his operations, it became obvious his business was bloated with unnecessary steps. He had overcomplicated everything. Sales funnels, onboarding processes, offers, marketing messages. Every system had layers that didn't serve anyone, but no one had questioned them because they were just the way things had always been. We simplified everything. We cut the offer suite in half, streamlined the client journey, reduced the number of KPIs, focused marketing on one promise instead of 5. Within 3 months, his business wasn't just more profitable, it was easier to run. His team was less stressed, clients were happier, and he had time to think again. Why? Because simplicity frees up bandwidth. And bandwidth is your most precious resource. Think about it. If your brain is constantly managing 50 open loops, unfinished tasks, vague responsibilities, emotional clutter, you don't have the mental space to make bold, clean, profitable decisions. You're always catching up, always reacting. And people who live in constant reaction can't create predictable income. They chase opportunities instead of building systems. Wealth is not built by doing more, it's built by doing fewer things with more focus. That's the leverage simplification gives you. It amplifies your strengths because you stop scattering your attention. You start putting 100% of your energy into the 20% of your work that produces 80% of your results. That's when you move from effort-based income to strategic, scalable, and reliable income. But here's something deeper I want you to understand. Simplifying your life doesn't just change your result, it changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who survives by managing chaos. You start seeing yourself as someone who creates success through clarity. You no longer need to impress anyone with how much you're doing. You feel power in how clearly you're doing what matters. That identity shift is everything. Because when you start thinking like a strategist instead of a survivor, your behavior changes. You start investing time instead of spending it. You make proactive decisions instead of emotional ones. You stop overloading your day and start protecting your peak energy for high-impact work. That's how the top 1% think. That's why they seem calm while everyone else is rushing. They've already done the deep work of removing what doesn't belong. They don't start every day wondering what to do. Their calendars reflect their priorities, their focus reflects their values, and their income reflects their discipline. You can have that too, but only if you stop romanticizing complexity. Complexity makes you feel important, simplicity makes you powerful. And yes, it takes courage to simplify, because you'll have to say no. You'll have to remove things you once thought were necessary. You'll disappoint people. You'll let go of projects that look impressive but deliver nothing. But in doing so, you'll create space. Space to think, to breathe, to lead, to finally operate from your highest level, not your most frantic one. So here's what I want you to ask yourself right now. If I simplified my top 3 goals by 50%, would I move twice as fast? If I focused on only one product, one path, one purpose, how much momentum would I unlock? If I eliminated just 5 low-return habits from my day, how much energy would I regain? This is not theoretical. This is how high performers build wealth without burnout. They simplify to scale. They simplify to lead. They simplify to earn more and live better. And now, it's your turn. You want to know what really builds confidence? It's not positive affirmations. It's not waiting until you feel ready. Real confidence comes from trusting your own execution. From looking at your day and knowing, I do what matters and I finish what I start. That self-trust doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's built in small, quiet decisions. And those decisions become easier when your life is simple. Simplification isn't just about saving time. It's about removing friction between you and your greatness. The fewer choices you have to make, the less resistance you'll feel. And the less resistance you feel, the more momentum you gain. And that momentum, once it takes hold, becomes a self-sustaining force. That's when people start saying things like, "You're so consistent, you're always focused, you never seem overwhelmed." But they don't see what you removed to get there. They don't see the habits you broke, the projects you killed, the opportunities you declined. They don't see the early mornings, the calendar audits, the decision to shut down distractions while everyone else chased shiny objects. But that's what it takes to become unshakable. If your mind is always racing, it's not because you're weak, it's because you're juggling too much. You've overloaded your attention span with obligations that look like progress but deliver nothing. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer commitments that drain you. Let me be honest with you, this takes courage. It's easy to stay busy. It's easy to say yes. What's hard is protecting your time like your life depends on it. Because it does. Your focus, your income, your peace, all of it flows from how you manage your attention. And your attention is always under attack. Simplifying is how you defend it. I've worked with people earning 7 and 8 figures who were secretly drowning. Their businesses were growing, but their lives were shrinking. They had no space to think, no peace. They were successful on the surface, but chaotic at the core. And the turning point always came when they simplified. Not once, not for a week, but as a lifestyle. They stopped measuring success by how many clients they served and started measuring by how calm their mornings felt. They stopped chasing scale for its own sake and started optimizing for profit and peace. They stopped trying to impress and started building systems that served. And that's when their confidence returned. Because when you know what matters and everything around you reflects that you no longer doubt yourself. You move with clarity. You speak with conviction. You no longer explain yourself to people who don't understand your focus because your results speak for you. So here's the truth. Every time you simplify, you make it easier to succeed. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you say yes to something that builds you. Every time you remove noise, you make room for genius. And every time you take control of your time, you take back ownership of your life. So, don't wait for life to get quieter. It won't. Don't wait for the perfect week to reset your routines. It's not coming. Choose to simplify today. Choose to let go of what doesn't multiply you. Choose to organize your day around your deepest values, not your loudest notifications. Because once you simplify with intention, you don't just earn more. You live better, and you become unstoppable. There's a myth that simplicity is soft, that it's about settling, slowing down, or giving up your ambition. But I'll tell you what I've seen in the real world. The most dangerous people in the room are the ones who've simplified their lives. They don't look distracted. They don't explain themselves. They don't chase. They execute. And when you meet someone like that, you feel it. They move with a calm edge. They don't react to chaos because they've already chosen their path. They don't jump at every new opportunity because they already know what they're building. They don't need to impress you with how much they're doing because they're already winning in silence. That's the kind of person I want you to become. Because when you simplify, you don't just reduce stress, you eliminate friction. You remove the emotional toll of trying to do everything. You stop being pulled in 5 different directions by the world's noise, and you start designing your own signal. And the moment your life becomes signal instead of noise, people notice. They trust you more. They follow you. They buy from you because clarity is magnetic and simplicity is rare. But here's the trap. The world will constantly try to recomplicate your life. New trends, new obligations, new people with their own chaos trying to pull you into it, and you have to be vigilant. You have to become a guardian of your own focus. You have to see complexity as a virus and defend against it like your future depends on it. Because it does. There will always be pressure to add more, to do more, to be more. But you have to keep asking, will this multiply me or just distract me? That one question alone can save you years. I've used it to protect my time, my income, my peace, and I promise you when you start filtering everything through that lens, the game changes. You stop being reactive You start becoming deliberate. You wake up knowing exactly what matters. You stop feeling guilty for saying no. You start respecting yourself enough to live on purpose. And that level of intention, that's what changes your entire trajectory. Because while most people are busy trying to keep up, you're building something unshakable. A rhythm, a process, a structure that holds, even when life gets loud. And when the storms come, and they will, you won't be scrambling. You'll be steady, focused, clear. That's what a simplified life gives you. Resilience without resistance. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to prove yourself in every room. You just keep showing up, doing what matters, and letting your discipline speak louder than your words. This is how wealth is built quietly. This is how peace becomes a daily standard. And this is how you rise without chaos, without burnout, without losing yourself. Because you simplified with courage. And that courage made space for everything you were meant to create. If you've made it this far, it means something inside of you is already shifting. You've started to recognize the cost of doing too much. You felt the drain of being pulled in 20 directions. You've lived the exhaustion of confusing movement for progress. And now, maybe for the first time in a long time, you're ready to choose differently. You're not here for more noise, you're here for clarity. You're not chasing everything anymore. You're learning to choose what matters and ignore what doesn't. Let me remind you of something that most people never hear in their entire lives. You have permission to make your life simpler. You don't owe complexity to anyone, not your past, not your family, not the expectations the world placed on your shoulders. You owe your future clarity, precision, peace. And the truth is, no one is going to simplify your life for you. Not your boss, not your industry, not society. Everyone else benefits when you're distracted, reactive, and overcommitted. You become easier to manipulate, easier to sell to, easier to control. That's why this decision to simplify, to edit, to clarify is revolutionary. It's not just a productivity move, it's a declaration of independence. You are choosing to no longer drown in your own to-do list. You are choosing to stop managing chaos and start designing calm. You are choosing to stop reacting and start leading. And when you do that, everything changes. Your mornings become smoother, your days feel lighter, your income becomes more predictable, your health improves, your relationships deepen, and perhaps most important of all, your mind becomes clear. For the first time in maybe years, you can hear yourself think, that's what a simplified life gives you. Space to breathe, space to create, space to lead. And from that space, you can finally start making decisions not out of fear or urgency, but out of wisdom. Now, let's talk legacy. At the end of your life, no one will hand you a trophy for being the busiest person in the room. No one will applaud how many hours you worked, how many meetings you took, or how many emails you answered. But what people will remember is how present you were, how focused, how much of your real self you brought to your work, your family, your mission. And the only way to consistently bring that level of presence is through intentional simplification. So don't let this message end here. Take action. Audit your calendar. Look at your commitment. Ask yourself, ruthlessly, does this multiply me or distract me? Then remove, delegate, decline, automate, and rebuild your life around the few things that actually matter. Simplify your goals until they're sharp enough to cut through doubt. Simplify your habits until success becomes automatic. Simplify your environment until it energizes you instead of draining you. And most of all, simplify your story. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to be the person who follows through, who lives with clarity, who builds with intention. That alone will set you apart in a world addicted to noise. And if anyone asks why you're doing less, just smile. Because you're not doing less. You're doing what matters. And that's why quietly, consistently, without anyone watching, you're going to earn more, live better, and leave a mark that lasts. You simplified, and that changed everything.